The topic this evening, I heard, is raining cats and dogs. That has to do with kings and heads of government, those who reign over kingdoms and states. We just passed the appearance day of Lord Sri Ramchandra. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that he appears in age after age. And we know that he appeared in the form of Krishna 5,000 years ago. And before that, he appeared in the form of Lord Ram. As Krishna, he played as a cowherd boy. And as Lord Ram, he takes the role of an ideal king. So he's the same person, but he appears in different roles, in different forms, for different purposes. The purpose throughout is to protect his devotees and to vanquish the demonic and to reestablish Dharma. This is his mission for his appearance. So as Lord Ramchandra, he set the example of an ideal ruler, an ideal king. The king is not supposed to be a despot, not supposed to be someone who gratifies his own wants at the expense of the people. He's supposed to be like a father to the citizens. It should be that he protects them. He sees that they have what they need. He sees that they're properly engaged, properly employed according to their occupation, that they're not just wandering about with no work to do. He sees that whatever the kingdom should supply for them, the kingdom is supplying. Just like a father to the citizens. And therefore the citizens would have so much affection for the king. It's not like current rulers who are feared and despised, but adored really, and honored, not as because we're forced to honor them, but because we're so grateful for their protection, that they protect us and take care of us. Someone has to do that. If we want to be peaceful, then someone has to be in charge of the state and make sure that we can have a peaceful life. It's not everyone's job. The scholars are not supposed to be protecting the state against invasion or something like that. They're supposed to be studying books and teaching and so on. In the Vedic culture, there are different occupations. There are those who are meant to give vision and learning. There are those who are meant to give protection and organization. Then there are those who are meant to be productive, to provide food and needed necessities, things we actually need: cloth, food, housing, homes, homes. And then there are those who, they're not so great at doing any of those things, but they can assist, they can help. So the Vedic culture arranges things in such a way that everyone's got their own work to do. And they can all do it as service to Krishna. That's the idea. It's not just that I have a job, it makes money, I show up, and I do my work. But there's some connection to divinity. There's a connection to divinity. It's part of my place in a divine order of existence, to be doing my work in relationship to the divine. That's the idea. So the rulers, the Kshatriyas, they belong to the Kshatriya section, the martial and the administrative section. So the ideal Kshatriya was Lord Ramchandra. Powerful, and that's Krishna himself comes and shows the example. He teaches, yes, the Vedic literature is there, but he shows by example, here's how a king should be. So there's a great there's history of Lord Ramchandra. That's beyond our scope this evening. But under such a ruler, the people, the citizens would be happy. And the king himself would spread Krishna consciousness, spiritual consciousness, so that all the citizens could take advantage of the real purpose of human life, not just to eat and sleep and mate and fight, but to achieve spiritual realization. The animals can eat and sleep and the rest of it, but the human beings are meant for spiritual realization. So the king would be responsible for providing that opportunity in a peaceful state. What we have today is something very different. In the Bhagavatam it said, Dasyu Prayeshu Rajasu. Hare Krishna. Dasyu means a plunderer. Not just a pickpocket, but a plunderer. Somebody, like beats you over the head and takes your possessions, plunders your resources. Dasyu Prayeshu Rajasu. Rajas means the kings or the heads of state. And Prayeshu means practically, almost. The heads of state in the present age are almost like plunderers. Almost like plunderers. Through different schemes, they suck up your resources, suck up your energy, and then just divide up the spoils among them and those they are indebted to or those they work with. And we see it in states other than, we're used to seeing, crazy African despots who, just blatantly steal from the state treasury. And, there it's obvious. But in other states, they're much more sophisticated about it. They've got polish, they've got real capability, so that we sort of know that they're not very honest, but we really don't know how depraved and rapacious and greedy and shameless they are, how far they'll go. How far will they go? Srila Prabhupada writes in one place, for their sense gratification, they'll do anything. They'll do anything. If there's a war and it creates profit, we're in favor of it. And it really doesn't matter to us that, people are going to die, people are going to be torn up on the battlefield. That's secondary. We have to keep our eye on the bottom line. So I don't want to give a political class this evening and talk about all the different ways in which depraved leaders do these things. The summary is that if people knew what their leaders were doing, they'd pull them all out of their offices, line them up against the wall and shoot them. They would. We have no idea the depths to which it goes. And I'm not going to, I'll leave it at that. But the ideal leader uplifts the state. He uplifts the state. He makes the earth productive. That's part of his not to be in cahoots with chemical companies who poison the earth so that they can prosper at the expense of the land and the people. He wants to see that the earth is the earth is protected. The Mother Earth, the mother is to be protected, not exploited. So the king was responsible for that. Is the earth being properly cared for, and is the land being made productive? Not by artificial means where we poison the earth to, get more, but naturally productive in a way that's in line with God's arrangement. Not artificial necessities, not big industrial plants to produce things that we don't need. What we really need is not very much. We need food, we need shelter, homes, we need cloth to wear, we need some other things, but we don't need huge industrial enterprises producing all sorts of rubbish. The advanced civilization is the civilization that simplifies, not the civilization that makes life more complicated, more expensive, and more, self-destructive. So that was the duty of the king also, that the earth be made productive, that everyone be employed, and that there be, above all, a purpose to the society. What's the purpose of these states? Is it just to be at war with other states? To, be in a sort of competition like corporate, corporate competition? Is that the idea? In the Vedic view, the state is a place where the citizens can live peacefully and have their, meet their needs for living nicely, and then pursue spiritual consciousness, God consciousness. How much do we get? We get, 50 years, 100 years in our life, and then it's over. And if all we've done is consume and fight and work like dogs, then what are we doing? So the leaders would give vision. Actually, the ideal king was not the head of the society. The heads of the society were the Brahmins, or those who give spiritual vision. They were the head. And they would live in practically poverty. Not miserable poverty, but simplicity, utter simplicity. A simple cottage or something. They would live like very, very minimal needs. The king, because he's the king, he has to have a show of opulence and some royal presence. But the head, the part that gives the vision, would live very simply. And the king would listen to the learned, the wise sages. So the sages would give the direction for vision. Your Majesty, are the citizens happy? Are the citizens in your state happy? Is everyone getting their needs? Are they making spiritual progress? These would be the questions. Because you have to ask everyone question. We meet somebody, how are you doing? So the question would be, in Vedic culture, asked according to the person's occupation. So you don't meet a saintly person and say, how's your business going? you'd say, how are your spiritual practices? How is your study of wisdom literature? And when you meet a state leader or king, then it's, are the citizens happy? Are they getting everything they need? Is the state stable and regulated? And are the citizens making spiritual progress? So that's the idea. A simple idea, really. A radical proposal that there's a purpose to human civilization. It's not just an assembly of cats and dogs with some of them on top reigning. But because that's what the cats will do and the dogs will do. They'll eat, they'll sleep, they'll fight. But human beings are meant. Human life really begins when there's spirituality, spiritual questioning, spiritual progress. The human being who doesn't turn towards spiritual understanding, who doesn't seek spiritual understanding, is in Sanskrit is called Dvipada Pashu. You know what Dvipada Pashu is? Dvipada Pashu. Pashu means an animal, and Dvipada means having two legs. So Dvipada Pashu, he's an animal, but he has two legs, that's all. So we call him a human being. But that's not human life. The only difference between me and the animals is that they have four legs and I have two. Or as Prabhupada put it, that they're running on four legs and we're running on four wheels. That's not civilization. Civilization means to try to ask, who am I? What is the purpose of my life? Am I this body? Am I an American or an Indian or white or black or young or old? Or am I a spiritual spark of consciousness within the body? And if I'm a spiritual spark of consciousness, then what's my purpose? Just to be sparky? But the Vedic literature says, no, the purpose is to engage in bhakti, or a loving relationship with divinity, with Krishna, with the Supreme. So this chanting Hare Krishna is meant for that, to bring us to that spiritual platform. To bring us to that spiritual platform, and to uplift us so that we can be happily engaged in it. This is our real business. I'm not eternally an accountant or a soldier or a businessman or a teacher. That's my temporary position. But my eternal position is to be an eternal servant of Krishna. Servant in this world is a miserable condition. No one wants to be a servant. But in the spiritual world, service is enjoyable. We get the idea of, like, from philanthropy in this world, a person who serves the poor, serves the needy, gets pleasure from that kind of service, more than getting something from himself. When he gives to others, he gets some pleasure. But that's a sort of a limited concept. I help my fellow human being and I kill the animals. I help my fellow Americans and I hate the Chinese or whoever it is that I hate this decade, whoever I'm supposed to hate. So if you take that service idea and extend it to the absolute, you extend it to the absolute, to the supreme entity, to the reservoir of pleasure, to Krishna, then that service becomes wonderful. It's like, let me serve more. Let me see the material world, let me serve less. How can I work less and get paid more? But in the spiritual world, no, you don't have to pay me, I just want to serve. Because there's nothing better than this. It's just the most enjoyable engagement. And it's done in all sorts of, well, for that we read Krishna's pastimes and see how the devotees are engaging in wonderful forms of service and reciprocation with Krishna. But that's another topic. And why don't I stop here and see if there's some thoughts or questions that you might have. Yes?
You touched on this, but I always struggle with remembering that I'm not a body. And I was wondering how you remember that you're not a body.
How we struggle with remembering that we're not the body. How do we do it? How do I do it? Yeah? Well, there's different ways. One is by reading Bhagavad Gita and other books, we'll be reminded. Krishna's sometimes graphically, or the Vedic literature sometimes graphically tells us, you know, are you this bag of material elements? Is that you? Yeah? In different ways, in different instructive portions, we're reminded the way that a teacher would remind a student. So that's one way. And another way is practical, because you can say, you know, okay, I'm not the body, I'm spirit. But then the question should be, well, if I'm spirit, what do I do? You know, like someone says, you're American. Always remember that you're an American. Okay, I'm an American, but what's an American do? He has to, well, you know, do some service for America, perhaps serve his country this way or that way. He has to be mean to other countries so that you know he's American. Whatever it is, if I'm American, I have to act like an American, or act as an American. So if I'm spirit, spirit has a natural activity. Spirit is not just, a sort of vague, amorphous substance beyond speech and perception. But spirit is a spark of individual consciousness. Every spark of spirit is individual. I'm not you. You're not me. We're all one in that we're all spirit. But I don't know what you're thinking. You don't know what I'm thinking. I might be thinking the opposite of what you're thinking, because we're individual. And Krishna, the ultimate, is also an individual. So the pure engagement, or the liberated engagement of the living being, is to be engaged in service to Krishna. And when we do that, then we're automatically off the bodily platform. We automatically no longer think, yes, I'm American, I'm this. I think I'm a servant of Krishna. Because you know what Maya is. Maya's illusion. And maybe the biggest illusion is that I'm this body. But illusion is like darkness. And Krishna is like the sun. Where the sun is present, the darkness is automatic. You don't have to separately say, okay, we've got the sun, now how do we get rid of the darkness? It's automatically going to be gone. So where there's Krishna consciousness, then Maya consciousness is automatically going to be out of the picture. We'll forget that I'm supposed to be this body, that I'm supposed to be an American, that I'm supposed to be 22 or 42. We'll just forget because we've got higher things to think about. So by chanting Hare Krishna and by engaging in practical activities to please Krishna, we reaffirm our spiritual nature and just leave aside we know that, you know, I have a body and it's here and I'm living in it and I have to keep it going. But we don't think that it becomes, you know how it becomes less important? It's like this. someone is working in an office, and in the course of his work, he's opening the file drawer, taking out a file, putting the file back in, closing the drawer, taking another file, this and that. Now, if you ask him, now, how many times did you open that file drawer? He has no idea. Doesn't even think about, now I have to press the button, now I have to pull, now I have to lift, his mind is on the work. What about that Jones deal, or whatever it might be? And it's just incidental that he opens the file drawer and closes the file drawer. He doesn't even think about it. So the person who's engaged in Krishna consciousness has that kind of an experience. He's engaged, he knows the body is there, and we do what we need to do. But his mind is on Krishna. And therefore he's experiencing a happiness that just goes beyond anything in the material world. Yeah? Thank you. Good question. Something else? Yes. Hare Krishna.
Like you mentioned, wars are bad, right?
I mentioned?
Most wars are bad, you said, right?
I couldn't, I'm half deaf, so you have to speak.
You said all wars are bad.
I said all wars are bad. I didn't say that.
Did you say that?
No. Mm-mm. Every now and then a good war.
So how do we determine, like I know the Mahabharata was a good war where they established Dharma, but how do you know
Good war
today's
means
wars
that
are-
it's actually for the good of the people. It's not done to keep some corporations fat and profitable. It's not the business just for squabbling over other people's property, and it's all other people's property. Other people means it's Krishna's property. We want to say, oh, okay, this belongs to America, this belongs to Russia, this belongs to China, this belongs to Colombia, and it all belongs to Krishna. So we're dividing Krishna's property among ourselves. Prabhupada said, thieves dividing honestly.
No, just wondering, how do we determine when two sides are fighting, let's say Ukraine or Gaza, which is a dharmic war and which
They
is a
just,
dharma?
you can assume they're all rogues. If there's something other than that, you'll come to know of it. But the operating assumption is they're all rogues. They're all rogues. And this one is fighting for democracy, and this one's fighting for justice, and this one's fighting for equality, and you've got all these slogans that they're fighting for. You could just assume that they're all cats and dogs, and they're all just fighting to get a piece of the bone or the whatever it is that they're after. The nobility it's been a long time since we saw any nobility.
So if they're all rogues, how we know that Krishna is not a rogue himself? How we know Krishna is not evil?
Oh, Krishna is a rogue. But he's the supreme, so whatever he is, he sets the standard. In that sense, he's all good. We say somebody's a rogue or somebody's a good guy according to our perspective, right? If he's against me, he's a rogue. If he's for me, he's a hero. But Krishna is the absolute. So everything about Krishna is good. I'll give you an example. That Krishna, among other things, he's a thief. Perhaps you know that he sneaks into other people's homes as a child, and he's living in a cowherd community, so they have all these milk products, and he sneaks into the house and starts stealing butter, yogurt, and dividing it up among his friends, and feeding the monkeys. This is all, first of all, illegal and unethical. It's just outright theft. But when Krishna does it, it's completely transcendental, And actually the cowherd people are waiting. When is Krishna going to sneak into my house? Because it's transcendental pleasure. So when Krishna is acting, Tatra Shri Vijayo Bhutir Juvaniti, Krishna Bhagavad Gita says, wherever there's Krishna, there'll be the highest standard of morality. Even his stealing is moral, because it's meant to create loving exchanges with his devotees. There's another example that Krishna was, in his role as a king, he was on the battlefield facing another king, Jarasandha, and then there was a second king in the picture, and Krishna fled the battlefield. He fled the battlefield. For a king, that's like the absolute bottom. To flee the field of battle, that's you're cursed for that. You're the dregs. But Krishna left the battlefield. He had some plan. He'd gotten a secret letter from a princess that I'm to be married to some rascal. So I need you to come and kidnap me quick before he comes on this. He gets me. There was a whole backstory there. So when an ordinary man leaves the battlefield, he's a coward. And when Krishna leaves the battlefield, he's a hero. So there are many temples, especially in Gujarat, of Ranchorji. Ranchorji means Krishna, who fled the battlefield. So the ordinary man, when he flees the battlefield, we kick him, we shoot him, we defame him. And when Krishna leaves the battlefield, we build him a temple and worship him. Because whatever he does will be good. He's known for killing demons. So someone may say, that's not very good, they may be demons, but why should he kill them? This is violent, this is not what we should be teaching our kids. But when Krishna kills a demon, the demon gets liberation from birth and death. The demon gets liberation from, so it's a kindness, it's a blessing. But if it's, why be killed by some ordinary fool? Let me be killed by Krishna so that I can get free from birth and death. But Krishna's all good, whether he's killing or he's embracing, whether he's dancing or he's shooting, whatever he does is there's no superior authority to say you shouldn't be doing this. This is wrong. This is right. Whatever he does is right because he's the highest independent truth, and because his nature is absolute goodness. Yes.
So, is Krishna good because he's powerful?
No. He's good because he's good. He is powerful, but his goodness doesn't depend on power. In the material world, it gets a little complex, but it's analyzed that there are three qualities that people have: goodness, passion, and ignorance. Ignorance is, like your drunkards and your madmen, they're in the mode of ignorance. And people who are always like competing and thirsty for more, they're in passion. And the person who's self-satisfied, tranquil, above dualities and so on, he's in goodness. And in the material world, these are always mixed, some proportion of each of them enters the hearts of all of us. But in Krishna, there's absolute goodness. There's no passion, there's no ignorance, there's just absolute goodness. So, it doesn't depend on power, that because he's powerful, he can be good. I'll be good as long as I'm in charge. No. Krishna's absolutely good. And so when he projects power, his power is absolutely good. We project power and it's, watch out. But when Krishna projects power, his power is beneficial for everyone, even for so-called enemies. Because for Krishna there's no enemy. He's, what's the word? Benevolent even to his enemies. Even if that means killing them, he'll kill them in such a way that they attain perfection. Is that okay? Does that?
I have one more question.
Sure.
If Krishna is absolute good, is there absolute evil?
Is there absolute evil? No. Absolute, because absolute means totally independent. Absolute, that's, when we say, what do we mean by absolute? Means there's nothing above that entity, that truth, that principle. Absolute. There's not relative, not in relation to America, China's big or China's small, or, in relation to a mile, a yard is small. Absolute means beyond all relativities. So Krishna is absolutely good and absolutely independent. He's not dependent on any higher entity, higher principle, higher law, higher rule. He's the ultimate truth. And evil is relative to the absolute. It's relative to the truth. The way that a shadow is relative to the sunlight. The sunlight is independent, or the sun is independent. The shadow is dependent on it. If there's no sun, there's no shadow. Is that okay? Thank you. Good questions. Yeah, we do have a few more minutes.
Maybe could you define what good is?
Good. Krishna defines what good is. He's the epitome of goodness. What does good mean? Well, good is explained in the Bhagavad Gita. The good qualities in goodness, because you understand something by its qualities. Like the microphone, its qualities and what it does and so on. So, asama, dhamma, tapa, shocha, kshanti, arjava, jnana, vijnana. These are qualities of goodness. Self-control, straightforwardness, truthfulness, knowledge, realization. If you look through Vedic literature, satisfaction is in goodness. The person in passion is never satisfied. I've got this, now how do I get more? Never satisfied. But the person in goodness, whatever he gets, he's satisfied. Whatever he gets. All right, good. He's tolerant, unlimitedly tolerant. All right, whatever. Undisturbed. Person in passion is always, hey, get off my whatever. I'm always disturbed. Do you see what he said about me? Who does he think he is? Anything can tick him off. But the Absolute is undisturbed. A saintly person, if you look at a saintly person, certain saintly person is tolerant, compassionate, wise, has empathy for others, self-control, free from greed, free from lust, free from anger. That's a saintly person. And the Absolute is the ultimate saintly person. He's the saintly person that all the saintly persons adore. So, in that way, we might, roundabout get at what we mean by goodness. Is that okay? I still have 4 minutes. Yes? Mm-hmm.
I have two questions. First, how do we achieve this goodness, this state?
How do we achieve the state of goodness?
Yes.
If we place ourselves in relationship to the source of goodness, we'll automatically be good. In other words, if we come to Krishna consciousness, then our consciousness will automatically be good. Krishna is all good, and when we're in relationship to Krishna, we'll be good. You know, if I'm working for the mafia or something, I'm going to be like what they are, because I'm doing their work, I'm connected with them. And if I connect myself with Krishna, then I'll be like Krishna. Krishna may be, you know, infinitely great, I may be small, but the qualities we'll pick up from Krishna, or we'll share with Krishna.
And just one more thing. How do you see your life?
How do I
See your life?
How do I see my life?
Yes, like since you were born until now.
Excuse me?
Since you were born until now.
You mean how do I like it, or
No,
what?
like just how do you see yourself, like your story?
How do I see you mean me personally?
Yes.
Oh my goodness. And the clock is ticking with 3 minutes to go. Fortunate. Fortunate because of meeting my spiritual master and coming in touch with these teachings of Krishna consciousness and being engaged in Krishna consciousness. Fortunate. And especially considering where it would have gone otherwise. Fortunate. There was a contest started by a magazine. They asked people to sum up their life in 5 words or less. And they thought they'd get, a couple hundred. They got like thousands of responses. The winning response was, not what I expected. So I think for me also, it wasn't what I expected, but it's, looking back, very fortunate. Okay, maybe, 2 minutes, that's what's left according to my watch. Yes?
Could you please explain what Karam Yoga is? Because
Param Yoga?
Karam Yoga.
Karma Yoga.
Yeah.
Karma Yoga, of course, that's a big topic, but one definition of Karma Yoga is acting. Karma means action, acting for the sake of the Supreme. Yoga means connection with the Supreme. So Karma Yoga, connecting our work with the Supreme. That's one definition.
So you could still be passionate and work for certain things in life, and if you're not attached to the results and you offer the results to Krishna,
Yes.
you could still achieve Him.
Anashrita karma palam karyam karma karotiya sasannyasi yogi cha na niragnichakriya. Krishna says the person who acts according to what he should do without attachment to the result is the actual yogi. Not the person who just gives up all work. All work is Maya, I'm not going to act. You're going to have to act. That's Bhagavad Gita. Krishna tells Arjuna, if you quit the battlefield, you'll show up again later, because that's who you are. You're a fighter. You can't avoid it. So don't try to give up action, but act in relation to me. Act in devotion, in service to me. So acting, ultimately Karma Yoga means devotional service to Krishna.